welcome everybody. Happy Equinox. There are 2 equinoxes every year. This is the last. No, this is the first of this year. I'm mixing up my years now. And welcome to everyone from around the globe to this discussion, which is, in my view, the kind of discussion we should be having on the subject of relating. The overall theme is what it means to be human. And we are trying to explore the concept of relating. We're not talking about just connecting, but how we make sense of each person's point of view, how we relate to each other. We have 3 exciting speakers: Lene, Rachel Andersen, Mark Aink. I hope I got that right. And Nadja Pass. Nadja is 200 years old. Well, no, she runs a discipline that is 200 years old. And I'm really looking forward to her take on what it means to be human and how she goes about it. But before we get started, we'll allow Lene to take us through some practical things, and then we'll take it from there. So
the practical stuff is really been boiled down to one thing by now, because everybody has spent so much time on Zoom and other meeting platforms that we all know how it works, I hope. But there's one thing that I really would like to ask of everybody, which is if you're not one of the speakers or participating in the Q&A later, please keep your microphone muted, because otherwise, if there's any noise or anything, Zoom will take you to the front, and your picture may overrule the speaker. Yeah. And that's basically it. We also have a very wide, very tolerant mind with regards to viewpoints, but we do not like it when people get rude. We experienced that once, and then I have the mute button. So we expect everybody to behave, and that has been a very exemplary group of participants we've had all day. So there hasn't been any problems. Not that I expected any, but it's been a great pleasure to meet everybody and to have these conversations. So I'm looking very much forward to this one too.
Well, Lene has the big stick. She also is, interestingly, the first speaker on this particular panel. So, Lene, do you want to take, or Robert, do you want to take the Q&A, the questions on paper?
That is correct. Folks, I'm going to, on your share screen, you will see a question with 3 answers. We would like you to consider this: what makes us relate better to other people and or to the planet, and name 3 things, but write it on a piece of paper. We will share it in the chat, but not right yet. We want everyone to have their own thought and be clear in their own perspective there. And then we will collect them and put them on the chat. And then later I will make a word cloud out of them.
And we'll give you 2 minutes to come up with 3 good answers. And that was 2 minutes. So please share in the chat and let us see what will make us relate better. Listening, love, and lust for life. Good wins.
I've been wondering when Lust was going to make it. Finally.
Come to Europe. Play and having it says run together, but fun together, I assume. We can run together too. That might work. And we have a cat fan who wants perfection and power. It's a Saturday evening. I don't know if people have started drinking yet, but it's
There's something going on here, yes. Maybe it's Europe, maybe it's just another Europe thing.
We will return to the answers later in the form of a cloud. In the meantime, I'd like the speakers, Lene, Rachel Andersen. I'm really not going to read out their bios. These are, very famous people in their own right. Mark Aink and Nadja Pass. You can look at their bios on the program, and each speaker will have 10 minutes. Then we'll go into the discussion rooms, after which we will have a Q&A. So, Lene, without further ado, I give you Lene Rachel Andersen, a prolific writer, author of many books, etc., etc.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have the overall theme, what it means to be human, and then we have relating in this particular event, and then we have given each of the 8 sessions a subtitle, and we've reached N for nutrition. It's not a topic that I usually speak about, but being a Dane and participating from Denmark, there's something very remarkable that has happened to maybe not to nutrition, but to our relationship to food within the past couple of years, which is that there's a Danish company that has come up with a medication that makes people lose weight. And it has had some almost absurd effects, and it has made me think about the bigger picture of our relationship to food, our relationship to body, our relationship to beauty, and our relationship to what it means to be human. I mean, what it means to be a physical body among other bodies and being healthy. Because nutrition used to be it used to be a problem to get enough calories. A lot of civilization, all the institutions we've built, the invention of the steam engine, the invention of money, the invention of mass communication, everything has been taken place until 100 years ago. People were starving in the West. There are still places where people cannot get enough to eat. Then we solved the problem of malnutrition about 100 years ago, I would say, in Europe, in the West. And then we started overeating, and now we're exporting empty calories to the rest of the world. And we are still born as Stone Age people, which means that we have a Stone Age metabolism, which means that an adult human male who doesn't move around too much probably requires 2,000 calories per day. A woman maybe 1,400 or something like that, maybe a little bit more. I don't know the exact numbers, but we were born in an environment where we were running around all day, or at least moving most of the day, and where calories were hard to come by, and particularly vitamins and proteins and salt and fat were hard to come by. And so we developed taste buds that really love fat. I mean, fat just tastes really good. And so does salt, because it's really hard to find salt unless you're near the ocean, and not all of us 200,000 years ago or a million years ago lived near the ocean. Actually, a lot of them would live near fresh water. So if you could taste salt and have a craving for it, you would eat more salt. And in order to get vitamins, fruit would carry a lot of vitamins. So if you had a sweet tooth, you would actually get a lot of vitamins by eating fruit. And then there's protein. There's this the Japanese language has a word for the taste of protein, which is umami. And so if you have a craving for umami, you can taste the protein, and so you'll eat a lot of that. Um, and and so we have these cravings for sugar and salt and fat and protein. And as long as that was hard to come by, we were slim and relatively fit, and we were also moving around because we hadn't invented the computer and the office job yet, and we didn't have cars, so we had to either walk or ride a horse or yeah. So we were slim and healthy, perhaps malnourished or undernourished, but definitely not obese. And then the past 60, 50 years, we've been mass produced corn syrup and other sweeteners, and we have made it extremely cheap to eat fat, sugar, salt, and some really not very kindly produced protein. Basically, it's concentration camps for chicken and pigs. So it's we have managed to make a very unhealthy diet rather cheap, whereas a healthy diet with fresh vegetables, home cooked meals, um, fresh ingredients are very hard to come by cheaply in a lot of the Western world. And there is actually an expression in the English language, which is a fruit desert, uh, where you simply cannot find fresh fruit anywhere in the supermarkets because it's simply too expensive to carry it in on the shelves. So this has had consequences, and I just very quickly found some statistics. I'm just going to try and share a slide here, and I'm not going to do a lot of slides, but I am going to show one, which is this one, which is the average weight of American men and women from 1960 to 2010. So on average, both sexes have gained 25 pounds. That's like more than 10 kilos on average. So they look different. I guess we all look different, and it's really hard not to end up looking very different. And that of course has not only changed the way we look, it also has changed the health, and it has changed the number of people who have diabetes too. And in Denmark, we have a company called Novo Nordisk that started producing insulin, I think around 100 years ago, and that allowed people with diabetes 1 and also diabetes 2 to get artificial insulin and take care of their diabetes. But some years ago, they figured out the metabolism behind an hour. I wrote, I'm not a biologist or anything. This is a new word for me. There is a hormone that we're producing when we eat that is called, I think it's the one called semaglutide. And that gives us the feeling of being full. So if you could produce that artificially and give it to people so they feel full earlier in their meal, they will eat less. And that is what people have started doing when they take the medication they produced. They produced it for people with diabetes, and it's called Ozempic. There's another brand called Rybelsus or something like that, and then they have a special brand for pretty much the same product that's against obesity, and is called Wegovy. And all of these products has made Novo Nordisk extremely rich, because you can tell the stats here. There are a lot of people who want to lose weight, but they can't figure out how to eat less calories because there's so much yummy and cheap stuff out there. So I'm going to show you a slide about how big Novo Nordisk is in this tiny little country called Denmark. These are the green, the gray and green here are countries by GDP. And then I put in the Nordic countries together in orange. That's not so interesting in this context. The blue fields here are companies. The V is market value, and the ones that have an R are annual revenue. And if you go to the column to the far right here, you can see that Denmark on GDP is number 38 among countries. And it's an annual GDP of 410 billion US dollars. Novo Nordisk has a market value of 399 billion US dollars because of Ozempic and Wegovy. So we've managed to produce empty calories so cheaply that a lot of people get obese. And then there's a company that comes up with a medication for it that becomes so rich that it has a higher market value than or almost as high a market value as the annual GDP of the country that it's in. So that says something about the amount of money that is in the market for food, for junk food, and for a medication against the results of the junk food. And meanwhile, while I guess one part of humanity is dying from obesity, another part of humanity is still starving and living for $1 or $2 per day. And I at some point had a boyfriend who was an American diplomat, and he had spoken to some leader in an African country. I forget which one it was, and this probably 10 or 15 years ago. And this political leader said that his goal for his country, because mostly the people in the country, the poorest people, lived on rice and beans, and his economic goal for his country was that everybody could afford per day at least one onion. So not just economically is there an extreme inequality on this planet, but also with regards to calories and food and nutrition. And here are some extreme numbers, I think, in how off we are with regards to eating well and thriving and having good health. Thank you.
Okay, Lene. That was an interesting take. I guess people will have the opportunity to discuss this in the breakout rooms. Question of longevity, production systems, obesity, and the business of food, or the business of controlling food. Next, we're going to take Mark Aink. Who is, I'm not sure how does, Mark is one of these people who you can't pin a label on. He's done so many things, and he is part of a decade of action, native circles. He mixes science with indigenous wisdom. So Mark, I take it you're going to enlighten us on the business of science and indigenous wisdom and where they meet, what it means to be human. So over to you, Mark.
Thanks very much, Florin. And thank you, Lene, as well. What I'm going to tell is actually I think moves on from where Lene left off, in a way. I'd like to see if I can share some. I hope this works.
So
I have to
if
quit
you
and reopen.
So, Lena, you never did comment on whether you think it was a good idea or Ozempic is a good idea or not.
So I think it's a good idea for treating diabetes 1. I don't have a problem with it per se, but I think overall it's an absurd situation. I think long term people will be healthier for regulating their food intake. I mean, it does regulate their food intake because people just stop eating when they've eaten less. So it really kills the appetite. So that's why people lose weight. They simply eat less. They lose the appetite earlier. So that's how it works. Um, now Mark is back.
Sorry, I was thrown out.
And now you need to become a
Could you-
co-host again.
Yeah, this is David Bauer, a conservationist, American conservationist from the 70s, 80s. And already then he said the wild places are where we begin, and when they end, so do we. But like I said, I'd like to move on where Lene left it, and that is kind of with this man. I met this man in 2000. I thought I actually was helping a homeless guy with a ponytail and a backpack. In the end, this guy helped me a lot. He's one of the wisest people I've ever met, actually. His name is Oren Lyons. And one of the things that he told me was in our conversations is what you people call your natural resources, our people call our relatives. And that says so much about our relationship because following you said we're gonna talk about how we relate to other people and also to the planet. And this says a lot. We have objectified everything and kind of made everything that is alive and turned that into dead models almost. And we've separated ourselves from nature in that sense. This is the jungle we're living in today. But we didn't only separate ourselves from nature, but also from ourselves. If you are in a restaurant, more and more I see people talking to their phones or staring at their phones instead of talking to each other. And we even turned our home planet into a dead model. And it's almost like Lego, to keep it in the Danish lingo, because we can just take stuff and put stuff in because, it doesn't matter. It's an object. It is not, we don't treat it as a living system, to say the least, and not at all as our life support system, which it is in the end. We turn nature into our mind. This is food production, people. This is how we feed ourselves with nutritious foods. We put animals into livestock. This is one of the photographs of a friend of mine, Kadir van Lohuizen. When you have the chance, you should see his exhibition. It's called Food for Thought. He traveled the world to look at our separation from food and from the food systems and how industrialized it is. It's jaw-dropping, but really fascinating as well. Also from Kadir, because we also put put food into industrial produce. And this system is, or has actually exploded in our face. And that's why now we take pills to lose weight instead of moving around and instead of eating nutritious food. So I thought, like I said, I met Oren in 2000. My background is in advertising. I used to work for companies like Apple and Nike. But I thought, how will we get to a society which lives in balance with our home planet? Because we know already since like the 60s, early 70s, that we're on a wrong trajectory. But in the end, nothing really changes, at least not as fast as it should. And that's why we started a Decade of Action, because we really feel that the solution is in resolving our connection crisis. We're talking about climate crisis, about poly crisis, but actually, I really feel we are in a connection crisis. And it's the connection with ourselves, but also the connection with other people and the connection with our planet. I don't think we relate to nature. I think we are nature in the end. So even that whole system, how can we be killing ourselves in a way and keep on doing that? So we've set up collaborative sessions with scientists together with indigenous leaders, artists, and people from the Young Climate movement, and got to ask them in the end 3 questions, or not really 3 questions. Asked them to identify 3 tipping points that we should be working on for 10 years, from 2020 to 2030, to try and accelerate that transition, and hence Decade of Action. And in the end, we came up with these 3: regeneration, regrowth, and reconnection. Reconnection is our relationship and our connection to nature and our nature. Regrowth, not degrowth, because people are strange beings. No one wants to degrow in a way. It feels like it's getting less and less, and really everyone more and more and more, but able to redefine growth. And growth is more than just financial success. You know, the main parameter at the moment for success is money around the world. But there, as you all know, there are so many ways to define growth and how we can growth. And regeneration, how can we do what we're doing in the food system in the first place, but also with industries, also within companies, also within societies, and start regenerating our life support systems. And this is one of the the big sources of inspiration for us, Buckminster Fuller, in that sense. So we're not on the streets, we are online, we are in all kinds of different discussions, trying to come up with a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And sorry, I'll go back in a sec. If you look at what industrial agriculture has brought us, I mean, it did bring us, this all stems from the motto after the Second World War, never hungry again. So we are never hungry again, not here in the West, but overall, this system, this industrial system, isn't able to feed the world population. Even the people who are saying right now, if we go back, because they see it as going back to like a more human-scaled and nature-scaled system of food production, worried that we can't feed a growing population. But the last to 70 years have proven that we're not able to feed the world population with industrial agriculture. We've lost about 70% in 70 years of nutritional values in foods, and lost about 75% in biodiversity. So we said we're gonna start with food, because if we are able to start a movement around healthy soil and healthy foods, we'll get to healthy people and healthy planet as well. And that's why we started working together to start a regenerative culture together with farmers, obviously, and all of them are quite young. They're smart people who design their lives in a different way, but also scientists. This is Toby Kears, who is a famous scientist in terms of biology and soil biology and fungi. Chefs, Emiel van der Staak is a Dutch chef who runs the best plant-based restaurant in the world. This is Kadir, the friend I was talking about, photographer. So we're working with these people collaboratively, and this is Chief Dada. Chief Dada is one of the indigenous elders we're working with. He lives in the Amazon, and he defends his territory and their territory from illegal loggers who we are financing from the West, actually, because we need soybeans and we need meat from their areas. But we really feel, and it's starting to happen already in the Netherlands, but also throughout Europe and throughout the world, we feel that all these raindrops start collaborating, and when they do, we can form a wave and change is inevitable in the end. Like I said, it all started with this man. This is March last year at Pioneers in Berkeley, where I met him finally after 25 years and was able to thank him. So I'm forever grateful to this lovely man. And we are the ReGeneration is the platform, the campaign, and the movement that we started, which is gradually spreading throughout Europe, actually, at the moment. That's it for me.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Great presentation. You reminded us, of course, that the business of relating with nature is not the appropriate term, because we are nature and we need to find our place and situate ourselves properly in nature. So between Mark and Lene, they have talked about food systems, industrial production of food, and empty calories, and a return to what nature designed. Question is, how many people will nature support? But I'll leave that to the Zoom room. So next we have Nadja Pass, who is, I came across the word recently, a salonist, 200 years of traditions, and she's going to bring this to our collective consciousness. Nadja, over to you.
Thank you. And most of all, thank you to Lene, who is creating this whole thing, which is really a big salon and also a beautiful digital take on this 200-year-long tradition of having people meet from across many disciplines and continents. Well, you used not to be able to do that, but now we can do that digitally. But the whole idea of gathering all of us together is also what the whole salon idea is all about. So I'm very honored, Lene. I'm also Danish, so we're kind of peers, and I'm very honored that you asked me to share some of the things that I'm working on right now, because I'm trying to look into how we can create more like analog ways of meeting, and definitely going from the malnutrition and the empty calories of a lot of the conversations that we are having to very dense, copious conversations that are brimming with inspiration and knowledge and of new things that we are learning from each other, sharing our life experiences. So what I'm gonna talk about now is this new experiment that I created, but it's really important for me to say that it's not about my actual cards or concept. It's about the learnings that I would like to share with you so that you can hopefully do it in your own way wherever you are in the world. So I'm just like taking my own experiences as the example and hoping that you'll be inspired and learn a little bit. So I created this deck of cards that are basically a card deck of curiosities and questions that might encourage us to rethink and re-enchant the world. And building on what you just said, Mark, I'm also feeling the connection crisis, and I really want us to like reconnect humanity through conversations. But I'm also finding that within a few years we have lost a lot of our conversation skills, and especially maybe our listening skills. So Concopia is created to sort of like create small rooms or pockets for concentration and conversation where we can like sort of enter a chamber of wonders and share our thoughts that is a little bit different from the way that we are talking in a lot of other contexts, because I think we need these like special rooms or salons to really say, okay, I'm now entering a special room where we can share and where we will have these respectful conversations. And that's also where one of the reasons why Concopia is called Concopia, because it's really a word that I created myself. So really don't worry if you've never heard about it before. But it plays on concordia, which is the Latin word for like the peaceful coexistence between individuals and groups and nations, where we can sort of be in a respectful container that even if we might be like really disagreeing a lot, we still listen respectfully to each other and learn from each other, instead of being like, I have to fight this and discuss this. And looking at the world today, I'm like, okay, so it could also just have been called Concordia because we definitely need to become better at staying in conversation and understanding where each other are coming from. Then the copia part is really because I am trained within rhetorics, and there we have this like notion of copia, which refers to our inner libraries, all of the stuff that we are always carrying around and that we can like pick up from our backpack and just like always put into conversations to make them more copious and inspiring. And the thing is that being a salonier and hosting a lot of conversation salons throughout the past 15 years, I have really noticed how rapidly we have lost a lot of copia, because we are relying on, well, it used to be Google, now it's AI, and a lot of the stuff that we used to have in our own heads, we're not really sharing that anymore. And a lot of people have forgotten it, and they have certainly lost the feeling of what might be relevant and inspiring to share. And then finally, I also like to play on the notion of utopia, because I also think that having conversations, it's not a problem in a group like this. I've been joining a lot of the sessions throughout the day around the world, very inspiring. But in a lot of other groups, when we talk about our big dreams and utopias, it very easily becomes like, oh yeah, that's nice, but that's never going to happen. It's so utopian. And I really think that we are living in times right now where we need to help each other, like build on each other's ideas and share our experiences in order to help each other create stuff that might be more inspiring in a lot of ways. So it's really, Concopia is a combination of those many notions. And then we have these, the actual cards look like this. They're quite small, but I also created some bigger ones to show you. and basically, they all contain an illustration that we have like picked from this like huge catalog or library of this kind of illustrations from 200 years from all over the world, so that even looking at them, you get around the world and re-explore things that you might have learned when you were a kid, or might not, but you might become really curious. Then they have a keyword or something that you could refer to. In this case, it is basically reimagining the world. And then there are some questions in the end, and a category. In this case, it's civic desire. So it hopefully inspires a lot of people to evoke their civic desires. And then on the other side of the card, each card sort of has an encyclopedic inspiration that is basically like why I think this is a great or interesting question. So it's kind of personal, but I hope that if people use them during the conversations, they might not agree with me, but it could at least like elevate the conversation that you might be having, or whatever you already knew, to another perspective that can be surprising or inspiring. So basically that is how the cards work. And listening to actually the first speaker I heard today, who was from India, she was talking about the many different kinds of knowledge. It could be indigenous knowledge or like postmodern knowledge. And I just thought it's interesting because creating Concopia, I intuitively put out these like 5 different categories, where some are very much about like the big perspectives, civic desires, how to change the world. But there's also a category called endangered skills, hopefully inspiring us to go back to all of the knowledge that we've forgotten all about or are about to lose the knowledge about. There's one called reenchantments, and there's one about wonders of nature. So it's really like the whole like mix of perspectives, having the conversations move up and down is really inspiring. And having listened to a lot of people having these Concopian conversations for the past year, I'm realizing how important it is for us to actually have hope and get ideas of how to change things, that we're not just talking about despair and the huge perspectives that are really hard for any of us to do something about now, but having all of these like more tangible things that we might be able to change in our own lives make quite a difference. And so they come in all sizes. Actually, you're the first people ever to see the big ones I have behind me, and that are the prototypes for a big exhibition that we're doing for librarians for all over the world that are coming to Denmark in May. And we're creating this like maze for people to explore. They're really high. They're a lot taller than me. And the whole idea of being so used to just like looking at everything on the phone, and it's small and it's 2-dimensional, and then all of a sudden like having this like almost cathedral of thoughts and ideas just adds a lot of tangibility and the feeling of space and wandering around in some wondrous things. So that's all really important. So I'm about to wrap up, but the last key thing that I would say about like one thing that has shown to be really important when it comes to having people listen to each other is that I actually really like to do some of the rounds with the cards as listening rounds instead of like jumping to conversation right away. So it would be almost like a talking stick, so that one person picks up a card, reads it out, shows it to the other people in the group, and then they answer and they're not interrupted and nobody comments on what they're saying. And then the next person picks up a card, talk about the new questions, and the next person picks up another card. And it's really interesting what happens when we do it like that, because we're so used to actually not listening to what the other people are saying. We're just thinking about, oh, I have something amazing to share. And then we completely forget to listen to what's actually being said. But when we do it like that, people get to share their perspectives and we listen respectfully. And then afterwards, we can have the conversations, and then they are very copious because we've heard all of the different things that we're so curious to explore and ask each other about. So the final thing I will do is I picked this special card for today that I think is really important in these times of hope and despair. And it's all about, it's hard to see, but it's about inverted eyesight, which is this like wonder of nature that I truly don't like. I don't completely comprehend it, but apparently we see everything upside down initially, and then it's only when light comes into our eyes that we see the world the right way. And I find that so inspiring, because whenever you're in a situation where you feel despair or you feel frustrated, it's always such a great mind trick, I think, to just look in the other direction and see if something else is emerging. So the question on this one reads, inverted eyesight. Share a story about something that frustrates you about the times that we are living in. And then look in the opposite direction and look at what might be emerging. What about this brings you hope? Thank you.
Thank you very much. This has been inspiring is the word I'm looking for. I mean, you've gone from conversation to the art of listening. And then, you went from Concopia to utopia, which is the reason most people dismiss everything that is not conservative as being impossible. It's just utopic. The question I have, and I hope you will answer I hope will be answered in the discussion room, is how do we educate the next generation to this type of thinking? I have a question which I will ask Mark, and I hope you will think about it, is what kind of production systems are we actually looking for? And for Lene, in a world where we have people living till 100, maybe 150, how will we sustain 9 billion people? What food system, and and so on. But those are my own queries. So Lene, will you open the rooms for
so we
people?
have we have some amazing breakout rooms, and the reason why they're so amazing is because you're in there. Everybody has a nice room waiting for them, except the two speakers and myself and the host and Robert, because if we send the speakers out into breakout rooms, they'll just keep speaking and they'll suck out all the air from the room. And we have 3 questions for you out there. What did we just hear? What did we learn? And what would we like to ask the speakers? So I'm going to open the breakout rooms, and please introduce yourselves when you get there and discuss what we just heard, what you learned, and what would you like to ask the speakers. And there's 18 minutes for you out there. So have fun.
Cool. So Mark, you're not suggesting that we go back to a Malthusian arrangement.
No.
because we'd have to
Robert, you can
call, we'd
stop
have to
sharing the
call
screen.
like 4 billion people from the earth to go back to that production system.
Now, the funny thing is we're doing research at the moment together with some of the rebels at Wageningen University, which is like a very respectable agricultural university. And actually with regenerative practices, once you, at first yield will go down for like a couple of years, but and that's something that we have forgotten. Nature is so much more potent than we think, and then we can haven't ever tried to imitate in a way. So after like 3 to 5 years, the regenerative farmers we're working with already produce more effectively than conventional farmers. And still keep like the natural system flowing. So it keeps on going instead of depleting the soil, depleting the water systems, etc., etc. So actually,
So no more fertilizers, no more. Are we going back to organic production?
yeah, absolutely. And not leaving out tech at all, but using tech to support nature instead of to deplete or destroy nature. And that's the biggest thing. But no pesticides, no artificial like fertilizers, etc., etc.
Interesting.
We're doing a study at the moment, and we're trying to get a pilot started on setting up farms based on the Eat Lancet diet, which is done by which is a diet which leaves us into the planetary boundaries. So one of the people who's working on that is Rockström, Swedish climate scientist. And what we're trying to set up is 10 farms in the Netherlands at the moment who are all only producing for the planetary diet. So we do have to go and move on to another diet than right now, because right now, like Lene said, we're using and eating empty calories, which are mass produced, which are produced industrially, but they're not feeding us.
I mean, so if I can return to Vollering, you asked 2 questions. One is, what was my opinion about this Wegovy? Wegovy. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's a really stupid word. It's a dumb word. As a word, it's really a bad word. Ozempic kind
They
of
couldn't
works
do
as
better
a
than
word. I don't
that.
know how they came up with it, but it's just
Yeah.
what, Robert? So anyway, the stuff. I don't know how they produce it. So I don't know if it's grown in the kidney of a cow or where they get it from. I have no idea, because I know how they started doing insulin. That was something about some animals. And so anyway, if it's produced in some kind of okay way, what I like about it is that it's not that it increases the metabolism, it ruins the appetite.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it had been increasing the metabolism, people could just have eaten 5,000 calories and still, stayed slim. Because it ruins the appetite, people just eat less, which means that they consume less food and they hopefully buy less food, and people will have smaller portions. So I think in that respect, it might actually be pretty good solution to a really bad situation. But I would rather fix the situation and have nutritious food that people eat, and that you have. There's also, if you
Right.
eat together with other people, and I can see that even if I just go to the office and not stay at home alone and eat all day, I eat less when I go here than when I'm at home, because I can just go to the kitchen and stuff myself. So the fact that I go here and see some people and isolate my food intake to the lunch hour changes my eating pattern. So I think if we created a different kind of culture around food again and actually brought in the shared meal and having meals together, and then you wouldn't, I mean, it's an absurd problem. I mean, we just can constantly fill ourselves with stuff
Mhm.
and we snack all the time. And we snack on the worst stuff. There's there's a chain of stores here called Normal. And I went in there by mistake at some point and I just left
Yeah.
because it has all kinds of plastic products and beauty products and uh, candy and soft drinks. And I was looking at it, it's like, this is like one big chemical outlet. There's not a single real food item in there. So it's like, you know, facial creams and hair products, all that stuff. And then it's stuff that people eat. And I don't know what the chemical makeup in the makeup and the snack foods, what the actual chemical difference is, because to me it looks equally poisonous.
Yeah.
Um, they did have some nuts,
A suicide salon.
Suicide
but
salon.
there is so much, you know, awful stuff out there and people eat it. And it's like, it has never seen a plant or, you know, an honest animal. So yeah, but I think the culture that we have is like more is better. And that is really ruining everything.
Well, let's not forget too that what Ozempic really, in my opinion, is undoing is what we have done with sugar. Because the whole reason that the food industry latched onto it was because back in the 50s, they realized that it suppresses people's natural sense of fullness and they keep eating. They knew this. Researchers figured it out too, but they didn't have all the money that the food industry did. And they've been knowingly, that's why everything has so much damn sugar in it. It
Yeah.
suppresses your stomach's I'm full mechanism. So
Yeah.
now we're going to undo it, but we're not going to do it by eating less sugar. We're going to do it by taking another thing that will, and I'm wondering how the food industry is going to react to the fact that
Yes.
people actually eat less.
I mean,
Ooh.
they have said it's a problem. Seriously, the American food industry has reacted.
Right. Because it's really kind of the same thing if you think about it, which is, well, people are going to eat less now. Uh-oh. We'll have to
Uh-oh.
figure out a new way to exploit you.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
Count on it.
So that was the one question. The other question was, so how are we gonna do this? How are we gonna change our diet? And I think, I mean, it is really a value shift and it's a story shift and it's a cultural shift. It's an attitude shift. And there was a very interesting, and that's really hard. And one of the reasons why it's so hard is because there's so much identity going into food. And unfortunately, um, because of all the fat and sugar and protein and junk food and the how good it tastes and how much children like it and the poorest lower socioeconomic strata of our societies, junk food is how you treat your kids. And when you are doing, it's going to be special, we're going to go to McDonald's. And people gradually lose the ability to cook, and so they just pile flavors together, and you get more flavor the more junk you put into the food, unless you know how to cook. So and then you have all the college educated people who have all the right opinions and know stuff about regenerative agriculture, who tell people that are now going to be regenerative vegetarians. And we're not going to be popular. We're only going to say that because it's messing with people's identity and the culture war that's already going on. So there's a huge cultural challenge in addressing this. And I think the resilience and the self-sufficiency and the prepper angle might actually be one of the sort of selling points. And the ability um, to create a strong local community. if we
Exactly.
invested in community gardens the way that we tend to
Right.
invest in sports
Exactly.
venues, we
Right.
could actually
That's
create a
actually
lot of
what we're doing with the farms as well. They're nearly all CSAs, which are like customer supported agriculture. So the community is part of the ownership as well of the farm. We do a lot of like cooking sessions together with them. So there are about 150 farms right now, which are pioneers within We Are The ReGeneration, and they all have like these evenings where they invite their neighbors and the community to cook together with fresh food. Because I think you're absolutely right. It's essential that the community is involved and that community is built around this whole system.
I,
So that's
I
I
think you're
liked
right, Lena. I
What
think
Nadja was saying as well on that, because asking these questions, sitting down together around the table and
Mm.
having proper conversations again and listening to others is like essential.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Nadja, how does one get the art of conversation and listening into the classroom? Is there a subject? Is there a subject that people can take in high school or university that enables this?
Well, yes and no. I think that at least it used to be in Denmark that we had a pretty strong tradition for a lot of this, but that has also gotten lost a little bit. And there's definitely, in my opinion, clearly not enough of that going on. But what I'm actually finding more interesting is to do the intergenerational meetings. That's really, especially for a lot of the younger people, they're like looking at us adults and they're like, why aren't you engaging and why aren't you doing anything? And then when we get them together in intergenerational conversation salons, it's just really really touching to see how easily they connect and share, and how much you can learn from the other generations in order to figure out how to create a lot of solutions. So that's definitely what I'm trying to do, to invite everyone who's interested and willing to join. And then I'm also joining forces with a lot of like different organizations to try and do stuff that is more that also gets out to the ones that aren't looking for it themselves. But it's really interesting to see what happens when it's people who disagree on things or have very different disciplines that meet in this room. And then if you only have the young people together, it might not become quite as interesting for them, because they're together all the time and know more or less the same things. So it's that everybody learns a lot more if it's a bigger mix.
I just want
How
to say
does
to
the
Perdip, who
salonist,
just joined, that we have everybody out in the breakout rooms and there's 4 minutes before they come back.
how does the salonist make a living? I'm
Oh.
curious.
Okay, so everything I talked about now is basically me spending money working rather than making a living, but that's fine, because I honestly, it's just really important for me to try and do whatever I can in these troubling times. But what I do, how I do make a living, is that luckily a lot of people, like the different ministries or corporations or organizations, find what I'm doing really interesting, and then they ask me if I could also create something for them. So for instance, there's this big organization for elderly people that really wanted to make more conversations happen in the nursing homes. And then they were like, could you maybe create a deck that is more like easily accessible for everyone to talk about, that could also like bridge the gap between like the people who are taking care of them and also the younger generations coming to visit. And it's yeah. So that then I was doing a lot of anthropological work, just like visiting nursing homes all over the country and interviewing a lot of old people and their dear ones, and trying to figure out where the gaps were. And then we created this other deck that really has made a lot of difference within the past few years. They've done a lot of measurements about like how yeah, so this is like really sad to say, but quite a few of the old people are like, once we're using these, I feel like a whole person again, which is, I mean, obviously nice for me to hear that what I created worked, but it's really sad that they didn't feel like a whole person before that. But yeah, so that could be one thing I was doing. And then also like if like helping, not in a political way, but helping create new politics and new solutions with the various government positions, like when they have a challenge and people are not able to be in the same room, they tend to call on me and see if I can help them. Yeah, so all kinds of different things like that.
Okay.
I would like to pick up on the intergenerational thing, because we hosted some events in Copenhagen. It was before COVID, in the olden days before COVID, and they were kind of normal debate events, but we facilitated it differently, and we created a different framework around it. But we have 2 or 3 presenters, and then we encourage people to bring their kids, their teenagers. And we had 2 families with some 13, 14-year-old kids, and we placed them around tables, and then they heard the presentation, then they had the discussion, and I had to write some answers on some paper. And the parents were just, I mean, mind blown, because they never had this kind of conversation with their kids. And the kids were like, I was treated
Yeah.
like an adult. They actually listened to what I was saying. And we didn't do anything different from what we normally did. We just encouraged people to bring their teenagers along. So we've simply lost that meaningful conversation between parents, grandparents, and kids.
Yeah.
And when they have it, it's just a completely new relationship relating that happens in the family, and it's just fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
And it feels
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, really, like, and I've seen that happen so many times, and it's really touching. And it's also, I mean, even if we're such a privileged society, there are also a lot of people who are not really thriving as much as they could be. And it's just really interesting to see what happens when we try and solve the connection crisis that you were talking about, Mark, having people actually having meaningful conversations again. But that's also what we feel being in this room, right? Like it's really nice to be inspired by other people and learning all of the different perspectives.
Yeah, totally.
So, Lene, how much more time do we have?
So we have until 40, and because then we are gonna kind of conclude the session.
Okay, I think everyone's back
Yes.
from the so we can go to the Q&A now. We can go to the chat. Lena, how does this work?
So we just ask if somebody has a good question for the
Yeah.
for the speakers, and we have a nice group size here, so I think we'll just, if people raise their hand, we'll see who would like to comment or ask a question and bring in what you discussed in the group. And if nobody raises their hand, we'll just point at somebody and make them talk.
Hey, Lena, I'll ask a question. This is Paul Srivastava from the Club of Rome. Thank you.
Hi, Paul.
Hi. Thank you so much for organizing this really interesting event. And I'm sorry I took a long time to get on into the call because my Zoom link was not working. But I caught a couple of presentations. And my question is, of course, we are kind of in agreement on where we need to go in terms of directions and what we need to be doing. But what is missing a little bit is the practical tools that people can apply in their daily lives and in their institutions to make the changes happen. Uh, could the speakers sort of talk a little bit about what they think are practical tools that I could use within, let's say, my own work setting is a university. So what can we change around in universities to implement some of the ideas with which I agree with all the speakers on their ideas? Thank you.
So you call Mark and Nadja and me and invite us over, because then Mark will tell about how we change agriculture. I will talk about how the new topics that you need to teach at the university, and Nadja will do the process. And we will just transform your university completely, and it'll just take 2 weeks.
Yeah, in 2 weeks, you won't be able to walk across the university because we are Penn State University. We are located in 23 campuses around the state. And but the thing is, I don't think the question I'm asking is about new knowledge, because my university is the largest agricultural university in the United States, and we run the US Department of Agriculture's Extension Service to train farmers. And I think there's a lot of knowledge available, but by practical tools, I was intending things that I can be doing in my day-to-day life. That's where, and of course also in my institution, but it's at a more grand sort of ground level. What is it that we can do with each other, to each other, to make that movement happen?
Can I?
Please go ahead. Go ahead, Mark.
I think one of the strongest thing you and your students could do is start organizing dinners, even like small dinners at home with people, and go for fresh produce. Talk about what you're eating, why you're eating it, at what farmer did it. Ask that the same question within that or at that table, because people can start growing their own food at their balcony even. They could start creating biodiversity pockets within their gardens, within their balconies, even within the university buildings. They could start saying no to some of the food that's being served in the canteens of the university, and start growing together, like starting a cooperative or a community garden for the university, for example. So there's so much you can do, like immediately tomorrow already.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think just to give you a sense, we have 100,000 students that we feed every day. 100,000. This is not a market that can be satisfied by local produce. I was the chief sustainability officer for my university for 5 years, and we implemented sustainable gardens, student farms, these refrigerator gardens that you would put in the dining hall, but they allow for maybe 1% of the food we consume. So in the case of the university, there's need for systemic change of the food system, right? Rather than, I mean, there's nothing, I think there's very little that we could do with farmers around us and we did. I think our local produce now is in the 3 to 4% range, but 96% is still being brought from California and wherever it is grown or packaged. So I think you're right that some minor efforts can be started by individuals and through dinner table conversations, but would they scale to the level that you are imagining for the big transformation to happen?
Well, it's funny. We're doing a pilot with one of the big hospitals, the academic hospitals in the Netherlands at the moment. They're struggling with the same problem, which is scale, basically. So it's not only about reinventing the production systems, it's also about reinventing decentralized distribution systems. And so that's a challenge by itself. That we're working on actually with some of the pioneering supermarkets at the moment. But you're absolutely right. That's necessary as well.
And I'm gonna say, so this is not so much about like nutrition specifically, but the whole idea of like having conversations like the ones that I just suggested, is that people seem to get a lot of new ideas for things that they can do in their own everyday life, even if they're like the grand perspectives are huge and we want to change them, but we also need to encourage everybody to do whatever we can. And it's really, I mean, I'm amazed every time I host these salons to see how people who came in like feeling a lot of despair and not having any ideas at all, just from having these conversations, listening to each other, learning from each other, they get so inspired and they figure out so many things that they're like, okay, this is what is mine to do. This is what I am able to do within my own sphere, and that might help a lot. And then also when it comes to nutrition, just meeting and having great conversations over dinner also does mean a lot to the way that you are actually eating and enjoying the food.
So I would say, I mean, when we're dealing with complex systems, I don't know if this is a complex system or a complicated system, but it's a very big system with a lot of individual parts that have to work together. And it's really hard to create change in such big systems, and it's impossible to set goals for like how much change do we want to achieve within such and such time frame. And we tend to set goals all the time. What we need to do is actually start at the other end and say, what can we put into the system? What are the decisions that we can change where we are? And how can we, I mean, if we all change 10% of our decisions to something that was more sustainable, that would have different effects and repercussions throughout the system. But we can't say in advance whether it should be everything goes vegetarian or everything goes local or everything gets recycled, containers and stuff. But if everybody got the task of having a conversation about what can we change in our department, and then figure out what would that require, and we take responsibility for the things that we want to change, then you can start making the changes. But coming up with a grand plan for such a huge organization, I don't think you can do that. But you could, of course, start with asking the people who run the cafeterias and bring them together and say, if you were to change anything going in this direction, what would be the low-hanging fruits that you can see?
Mhm.
Because you can't know that, but they probably can come up with a lot of stuff rather easily because they have literally the hands in the in the dough. So that's what I would where I would start. You got some
Okay.
raised hands here. Thank you, Paul.
Yes, we have, so we'll take Mikhail, Lars, or Mikhail, Heidi, and Lars. So Mikhail, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Franz. So I have almost the similar question, what was already covered by Mark, but I'll try to reframe it in more, say, sharp way. I'm directing my question to all the speakers. I have a very strong feeling that our voice is still very weak comparing to the voice of money and other unindustrialized voice. So the question is not to what to do, but do you see, you personally, do you see any kind of leverage to be used to make this weak signal, unfortunately, louder and listened to in every possible corner on our Earth, on the only planet we have? So what leverage? Because if remembering the forecast of Club of Rome, the 2050 will be the threshold after which the disaster will be irreversible, ecological, and so on. So please, what could be your answer to this?
Oh,
Okay,
Nadja, you
well,
go first. So I mean, we're doing what we can do by getting you people together and having this conversation. I really think the conversation and bringing this to where we already have our network, and I think that the dinner thing in general, we could have much more interesting dinner parties, all of us, I bet, because the last time I was at a dinner party, it was actually incredibly boring because everybody was just talking about what they had bought recently. And I couldn't stand it. So if I think we should bring Nadja's cards and say, either you start talking about these cards or I won't have dessert, because we're making ourselves dumber than we have to be. And I mean, we're in the European session now. Everybody who's joined has a Zoom access. We've talked to some wonderful people around the globe literally today. And we're the privileged people who have all learned English as maybe not our first language, but definitely our second language. And we can meet and have this discussion, but we also have local places and venues where we can take this up. And I think we're all afraid of the rejection from the people that we're relating ourselves to if we said we need to talk about something important. So the trick is to create a way of bringing that up where people don't feel that they have all the right opinions stuffed down their throat, because nobody can stand that. But actually where we're willing to hear people's own perspective and bring up some uncomfortable questions, but also talk about what can we do. And I really think it's something that I've realized relatively recently. The way that we keep setting goals for everything, I think that's part of why we are not solving any problems. If we started with what can we do where we are and what would be the low-hanging fruits for me, we would actually have an effect. And then what that would be for me would be different from somebody else. So I think that
to add
that's
to
a
that,
change of
maybe,
perspective.
Lene, maybe to add to that, I think it's, and especially now, one of my favorite quotes of all times is one of Martin Luther King. The ones that love peace should organize themselves as well as the ones who love war. And this is the time to do that, to unite and to even to pull with 100,000 students. You could guarantee your conventional farmers certain have like a guaranteed ask from them, and say we're going to support you in the next 5 years to go from where you are to moving to organic or regenerative and produce healthy foods, and we're going to be there with 100,000 people to support you on that. So there's a lot that you can do. In the Netherlands currently we're doing, which is really, really hard. People have lost kind of the way to cooperate in a way, because everyone's in their own rights and have the feeling that they are right. But we're trying to do a campaign which will come along gradually with 40 to 50 different parties, ranging from Greenpeace and WWF to animal welfare to green farmers associations, etc., etc. So it's time to get all these progressive movements together as well, because the industry is organized pretty well and they've got more money than we will ever have. So we've got to be smarter, more creative. And the thing is, we've got people. We've got the culture on our hand because we've got people on our hands. And in the end, I feel that that's much stronger than whatever company you are.
And also, it's really important for me to say it doesn't have to be my cards. The point is that it's important to ask interesting and surprising questions. And there are a lot of decks out there that are very that are much easier maybe to relate to. It's like, so what's your favorite thing to eat or something like that. But it's actually really interesting when you get the leverage that challenges people. That's once again the whole idea of like brain nutrition as well. And so I'm trying on the website to share some of the recipes as for how to create various dinner concepts or conference dinner concepts. And also what I've really learned is that once, like, you might have a lot of preconceptions about who would like to join these things, but it has been really interesting to see that once somebody invited me and I'm in a room with a lot of executives or whatnot that you would think would not participate in this, once they actually surrender to the framework, they become very they really like engage in it a lot and really like to do it after all. And they come up to me after and they're like, oh, I'm so surprised. This is usually not my thing, but this is actually really interesting. So there are many things to do, but I think the important trick is to not ask the obvious questions. And as a very specific example, a couple of years ago, the Danish National Gallery was doing a big exhibition on Danish 19th century art with the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York and the Getty in Los Angeles. And they asked me to be the salonier for the opening dinners. And I created some cards for that. And on the train going down to LA, I met this Chinese woman and we talked about this. She was like, so is it going to be a lot of questions about art? And I was like, that's actually the only thing it's not going to be about, because you have like all of the, like, it's like the world elite of people within arts that meet, and they always talk about the same thing and share stories from the same world. So having to share something else from their lives is going to create something completely different. And it was just so interesting how they came up to me after and they were like, oh, I feel so invigorated. I got to talk about all this stuff that I haven't, I got all these inspirations from other worlds than what I usually think about. So I think that's really important to remember. We tend to be like, oh, if it's about nutrition, it should all be about food. But sometimes there might be a lot more inspiration in other disciplines and fields and ways of thinking that might actually be better questions for that specific dinner or topic or discussion.
Heidi, ask your question. We're running out of time, but please ask your question.
All right. I have 3 or 4, and of course I'm only going to ask one. But the discussion's lively and it keeps leading to the next question. So I'll go with the first one I had, which is that, Mark, what you offered is beautiful. Meals together are wonderful. Going to harvest food with students is absolutely incredible, because it is amazing how many, and I live here in the US, I live in a rural part of the US, and even in a rural part of the US, it's possible to have a classroom full of students interested in ecology and the planet who've never harvested a potato before and don't know where potatoes come from and don't know that they're a mountain crop. My expertise is in global mountains. So this is kind of a question to Mark and Paul, even though he wasn't one of the speakers. It's, if we say that at big universities, what Mark is proposing doesn't work, then maybe the model for university education is what's wrong. How is it that we have colleges of 60,000 humans who sit in classes of 1,000 to 2,000 students each with a video monitor, and then the teacher's in another room with another 2,000 students? I personally chose to teach at a small college in a rural part of the US. My biggest class is 50. Roughly 50 people could actually come and hang out in my driveway for a meal together. Not quite in the house, but in the driveway. Where and how do we shift in more directions than one? If we want to be able to have these community meals, how do we shift the other side of the system too, is my question.
Beautiful.
Okay, Mark.
Really
Take a
beautiful.
stab at that.
I think that's a really beautiful question. And I think part of how to do that is to lose control a bit. If you're talking about 60,000 or 100,000 smart people together, how to come up with ways to delve into that potential and that intelligence to come up with solutions. Because I'm absolutely sure that, you've got the smartest people ever at your universities. So they should be able to come up with even solutions for the questions you're raising. And to involve them in that, I think, is the main secret. Because that what Lene said already, this is about a culture shift. This is about moving in the other direction completely. So industrializing in whatever way, even in the way we've set up colleges and we've set up universities, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Should we take a
Can I
break?
say
So I
something in
just
response to
want to
Heidi?
bring the attention to Mikhail's reason for leaving the session. There's a missile attack, so stay safe, Mikhail.
Take care.
Wow.
Take care.
Somebody ran a missile attack. So can I jump in here? I'm
No,
sorry to hear
because
about
we
Mikhail's.
only have 4 minutes left of the session, and we need to close down the Zoom room before we go to Latin America. So we'll have to have that conversation at some other time. But thank you, Paul, for joining.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So at the beginning of the session, we asked a question to everybody here, which is what would help us relate to each other and to the planet better, and name 3 things. And everybody wrote that in the chat. And Robert has made a word cloud. And so how can we relate better? By listening, loving, a craving for Bildung, somebody wrote, and more knowledge. And we probably need some better institutions for it as well. Common values. And somebody wants cats and dogs. We need more cats and dogs. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. We will bring out the collective intelligence from all 8 sessions. And here's the world map. If you have not been to the Padlet link yet, Robert is going to share it in the chat. And if you click on it, you'll get to a world map. In the bottom right-hand side corner, there's a pink circle with a plus sign. And when you click on that, you can enter where you're participating from. And as you can tell on the map, we have already had people participating from all over the globe. And now you can be there as well. So that's a little tradition that we have at the global meeting on Equinox. And then we have, I think I forgot to wave the book in the beginning here, but we do have a book called What It Means to Be Human. We launched it exactly a year ago, and that's why we kept the title for these events, because people tended to resonate with this title, and so we're still discussing what it means to be human. Fullerin suggested that you should not buy it at Amazon, and you don't have to, because bookstores around the globe are supposed to be able to order it home, and you can also order it online. So if you look up the book title and get the ISBN number, I can actually share that with you. So there's a web page that I'm going to share the link in the chat, and you can get the ISBN number and get somebody to take the book home when you can buy it, or go to Barnes & Noble if you're in the US and order it from their online bookstore. And then the final thing that I'm going to share is the web link for the event in September. And as you can tell, there's not a lot of content there because we haven't planned it yet, but we have 4 buttons. If you would like to become one of the co-organizers, you can click on the button, and there's an email going to us, and then we'll reach out to you. If you would like to be a speaker, you can click on a button, and if you would like to become an ambassador for the global meeting on Equinox, you can also choose that. You can choose all three if you want. And then you can also get the Zoom link for the event and sign up already. Now I messed up the date on that one, but I'll fix it. So 20th of September is going to be the next meeting on Equinox. It's also a Saturday. It has turned out to be a good day for this. And on that note, I would like to thank the other two speakers, Nadja Pass and Mark Aink, and Fullerin for hosting the thing, and Robert for doing all the practicalities behind the scenes. And we're going to shut down the Zoom room, and then we're traveling to Latin America. And see you in Latin America in 15 minutes. And it's the same link. And we will be there and receiving you at the top of the hour. So looking forward to seeing you in Latin America.
Thanks,
And
Lene.
we'll close down the Zoom room. So it's not like we're disappearing. It's just that that's the way to stop the recording and have the separate sessions recorded separately. So see you there. Take care.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.